Hello there. Tonight we are going to explore the most relaxing facts about dreaming to help you fall into a deep, restorative sleep. You've been carrying the weight of the waking world for hours now, perhaps longer than you should have. The thoughts that circled your mind today, the decisions unmade, the conversations replayed, they can rest now, because tonight you're going to discover something remarkable, that your brain has been preparing a sanctuary for you all along, a place constructed from electricity and chemistry, where the rules of physics bend and the impossible becomes your temporary home. This is not escapism. This is architecture. Your mind builds cathedrals while you sleep, and tonight we're going to walk through them together. Slowly, with no urgency, no destination, just the quiet revelation of what happens when consciousness finally, mercifully, lets go. The human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, each one a tiny universe of electrical potential. But here's what makes the dreaming brain so profoundly different from its waking counterpart. During REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, that vigilant executive manager that spends all day questioning, analyzing, doubting, goes beautifully, blessedly quiet. It dims like a theater before the performance begins. Meanwhile, the limbic system, your emotional core, blazes with activity. The amygdala and hippocampus light up in patterns that neuroscientists describe as storm-like, though that word feels too violent for what's actually happening. It's more like watching cities from an airplane at night, all those scattered lights suddenly making sense as a constellation. Your brain isn't shutting down during dreams. It's redistributing power, channeling energy away from logic and toward something older, something that doesn't need words to communicate. This is why dreams feel true even when they're impossible. Your emotional brain is running the show, and it speaks in symbols, in feelings, in the grammar of metaphor. Every night you cycle through different stages of sleep, but it's REM, rapid eye movement sleep, where dreams become most vivid, most cinematic. Your eyes move beneath closed lids, tracking images that don't exist in the physical room around you. Scientists can watch this happen, can measure the darting movements that correspond to dream events, as if you're watching a film projected on the inside of your skull. And in a sense, you are. But here's the beautiful part. The visual cortex, the part of your brain responsible for processing what you see, activates during dreams almost as intensely as it does when you're awake. Your brain is generating images with such conviction, such detail, that it might as well be real. The waterfall you're standing beside in the dream, the childhood home that appears with impossible accuracy, the face of someone you haven't thought about in years, all of it rendered in neural firing patterns that mirror actual perception. Your brain doesn't distinguish between the dream and the reality while you're inside it. Both are just electrical signals, just patterns of activation. Both are, in their own way, true. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine surges during REM sleep, flooding the brain with a chemical that enhances memory formation and sensory processing. At the same time, norepinephrine and serotonin, the chemicals that keep you alert, anxious, ready to respond to threats, drop to almost nothing. This is the neurochemical recipe for dreaming. Heightened perception without the burden of fear, memory without the weight of consequence. You can revisit the past without being trapped there. You can imagine futures without the anxiety of whether they'll come true. The brain becomes a theater where anything can be rehearsed, anything can be explored, and nothing has to be decided. There's a reason dreams feel like freedom. Chemically, they are. Your mind is temporarily released from the neurotransmitters that bind it to worry, to planning, to the exhausting work of being alert. What remains is pure experience, pure sensation, the world as it might be if you weren't so afraid of it. Deep within the brain stem, a cluster of neurons called the pons acts as the conductor of your dream orchestra. It sends signals up to the thalamus, which then relays them to the cortex, creating the rich sensory tapestry of the dream. But here's what's so quietly miraculous. The pons also send signals down to your spinal cord, effectively paralyzing your body from the neck down. This is called rematonia, and it's your brain's way of protecting you from acting out your dreams. You might be running in the dream, fighting, dancing, flying, but your body remains still, breathing slowly, muscles slack. It's a kind of gentleness when you think about it. Your brain knows the difference between the journey happening in your mind and the one that would be dangerous to enact in the physical world. It holds you safe while you wander. It keeps you tethered to the bed even as your consciousness roams through impossible landscapes. You are, in the most literal sense, safe to dream. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped structure buried deep in your temporal lobe, plays a starring role in how dreams are constructed. During the day, it encodes memories, filing away experiences, faces, facts. But at night, during sleep, it begins a process called memory consolidation. It replays the day's events, not in linear order, but in fragments, in emotional highlights. The hippocampus doesn't care about chronology. It cares about meaning. So it pulls out the moments that mattered, the conversation that made you laugh, the problem you couldn't solve, the image that stuck with you, and it weaves them into the dream. This is why dreams feel like collages, why your childhood dog might appear in your current apartment, why a co-worker's face might morph into a stranger's. Your hippocampus is making connections, drawing threads between past and present, finding patterns you didn't know existed. It's not random. It's deeply, almost eerily organized, just not in a way your waking mind would recognize. The default mode network, a collection of brain regions that activate when you're not focused on the outside world, becomes especially active during dreaming. This is the same network that engages when you daydream, when you reminisce, when you imagine the future. It's the part of your brain that constructs narratives about yourself, that asks, what if? That wonders about other people's inner lives. In dreams, the default mode network runs wild, unchecked by the prefrontal cortex's usual skepticism. It spins stories with the confidence of a novelist who knows no one will edit the first draft. And because the logical part of your brain isn't interfering, these stories can be strange, non-linear, emotionally charged in ways that waking narratives rarely are. You accept impossible premises, that you can breathe underwater, that you're back in high school, that the dead are alive again, because the part of you that would question those premises is asleep. What remains is pure story, pure myth-making, the brain doing what it does best, creating meaning out of chaos. Your dreams are not the same throughout the night. In the first REM cycle, which occurs about 90 minutes after you fall asleep, dreams tend to be shorter, more fragmented, often replaying recent events or mundane details. But as the night progresses, as you cycle through deeper sleep and back into REM, the dreams grow longer, stranger, more emotionally intense. By the early morning hours, you might be spending 30 to 40 minutes in a single dream, living what feels like hours or even days within that compressed neural time. The brain is warming up, gaining confidence, diving deeper into the symbolic and the surreal. This is why the dreams you remember most vividly are often the ones from just before you wake. They're the culmination of the night's work, the final act of the performance, the moment when your subconscious has fully committed to the narrative it's been building all night long. The visual cortex isn't the only sensory area that lights up during dreams. The auditory cortex processes sounds, voices, music, ambient noise that exist only in the dream. The somatosensory cortex can generate the feeling of touch, of temperature, of movement. People report tasting food in dreams, smelling flowers, feeling wind on their skin. The brain is capable of synthesizing a complete sensory world, indistinguishable from waking reality in the moment you're experiencing it. And yet, all of this happens in silence, in stillness, in a body that hasn't moved. You are lying in bed, breathing slowly, while your brain constructs entire universes inside your skull. It's one of the most extraordinary things a human body can do, and it happens every single night, whether you remember it or not. You are always dreaming. You are always building worlds. There's a structure called the claustrum, a thin sheet of neurons tucked beneath the cortex, that some neuroscientists believe might act as the conductor of consciousness itself. It has connections to nearly every part of the brain, and during dreams, it may be responsible for binding together all the disparate sensory and emotional elements into a coherent experience. The claustrum is still deeply mysterious. We don't fully understand what it does or how it does it, but the leading theory is that it integrates information, that it's the reason a dream feels like a unified experience, rather than a jumble of disconnected images. It's the thread that holds the narrative together, the invisible hand that makes sure the dream, however strange, still feels like it's happening to you, like it's your story. Even in the chaos of the subconscious, there's structure. Even in the impossible, there's coherence. The brain's energy consumption doesn't decrease during sleep. In fact, during REM sleep, the brain uses almost as much glucose as it does when you're awake. It's working intensely, just on different tasks. Instead of processing the external world, it's processing the internal one. It's sorting, filing, connecting, creating. Dreams are not rest for the brain. They're a different kind of labor, a night shift that's just as essential as the day shift. And perhaps that's why dreams can feel so exhausting sometimes, why you can wake from a vivid dream feeling like you've been on a journey. Because you have. Your brain has been working all night, building and rebuilding the architecture of your inner world, making sure everything is where it needs to be, making sure you're ready for whatever comes next. The phenomenon of dream incorporation, where external stimuli get woven into the dream, reveals just how active and responsive the dreaming brain remains. A sound in the room, a change in temperature, even the pressure of a full bladder can be translated into dream content. The alarm clock becomes a phone ringing in the dream. The cold air from an open window becomes a snowstorm. Your brain is still monitoring the environment, still processing sensory input, but it's translating everything into the language of the dream. It's protecting the dream, trying to keep you asleep, trying to make sense of the intrusion without waking you. This is why you can sometimes solve a problem in a dream that would have woken you. Your brain finds a narrative explanation, a way to incorporate the disturbance into the story. It's adaptive, creative, determined to let you rest. Neuroimaging studies have shown that the brain regions responsible for self-awareness and metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking, are significantly less active during non-lucid dreams. This is why you rarely question the dream while you're in it, why you accept the bizarre logic, the impossible physics, the part of you that would step back and say, wait, this doesn't make sense, is offline. You're fully immersed, fully present in the dream world, without the distance that self-awareness creates. It's a kind of surrender that's almost impossible to achieve while awake. In dreams, you're not watching yourself live. You're just living. There's no commentary, no second guessing, no performance anxiety. Just experience, unfiltered and immediate. The amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, can be up to 30% more active during REM sleep than during waking hours. This might seem counterintuitive. Why would the fear center be so active during a state that's supposed to be restorative? But the amygdala isn't just about fear. It processes all intense emotions: joy, sadness, anger, love. In dreams, emotions are heightened, unmediated by rational thought. You can feel profound grief for a stranger, overwhelming love for a place that doesn't exist, terror at a threat that makes no logical sense. The amygdala is given free rein to explore the full spectrum of human feeling without the prefrontal cortex stepping in to moderate or explain. This is why dreams can be so emotionally cathartic. They let you feel things fully, without defense mechanisms, without the need to justify or understand. Just pure emotion, experienced and released. The brain's glymphatic system, a waste clearance pathway that's far more active during sleep than waking, works in concert with the dreaming process. While you dream, cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain, washing away metabolic debris, proteins that have accumulated during the day. It's a physical cleansing that happens alongside the psychological processing of dreams. Your brain is being cleaned, literally and figuratively, while you sleep. The dreams are part of that process, sorting through the day's experiences, deciding what to keep and what to discard, while the glymphatic system does the same on a cellular level. You wake up clearer not just because you've rested, but because your brain has been washed, renewed, prepared for another day of accumulation and experience. There's something profoundly democratic about dreaming. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how much money you have, or what you believe. Every human brain, given the chance, will dream. It's universal, ancient, encoded in our biology. The same structures that generate your dreams tonight generated dreams for your ancestors 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. The content changes. Our dreams are filled with cars and phones and modern anxieties. But the mechanism is the same. We are all, every night, participating in the same ritual, the same neurological ceremony. We are all building worlds in the dark, all wandering through landscapes that exist only in the electric firing of neurons. It's one of the few experiences that truly unites every member of our species. We all dream. We all, for a few hours each night, become architects of the impossible. And so tonight, as you feel yourself drifting, as the weight of wakefulness begins to lift, know that your brain is preparing something extraordinary for you. It's dimming the lights in the prefrontal cortex, turning up the volume in the limbic system, flooding your neurons with acetylcholine, paralyzing your body to keep you safe. It's about to take everything you experienced today, every conversation, every image, every fleeting thought, and weave it into something new, something strange, something that might not make sense in the morning but will feel, in the moment, absolutely true. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to try. The architecture is already there, built into your biology, waiting for you to stop resisting, and finally, gratefully let go. You've already begun the descent. Your breathing has slowed, your muscles have softened, and somewhere in the back of your mind you can feel the day starting to dissolve. This is good. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. Because now we're going to explore the most mysterious phase of sleep, the one that scientists spent decades trying to understand, the one that still holds secrets we're only beginning to unravel. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is where the brain does its most intricate work, where memories are sculpted, emotions are processed, and the mind performs maintenance that can't happen any other way. You don't need to understand all of it. You just need to know that it's happening, that your brain is taking care of you in ways you'll never consciously witness. REM sleep was discovered by accident in 1953 by a graduate student named Eugene Aserinsky, who was studying the sleep patterns of infants. He noticed that at certain points during the night, their closed eyes would move rapidly back and forth, as if they were watching something. At first, he thought his equipment was malfunctioning. It seemed impossible that the eyes would move so dramatically during sleep, but the pattern repeated, night after night, in every subject. When he and his advisor, Nathaniel Kleitman, woke people during these periods of rapid eye movement, they discovered something remarkable. Nearly everyone reported vivid, narrative dreams. They had found the biological signature of dreaming. Before this discovery, many scientists believed dreams were just brief flashes that occurred at the moment of waking. But REM sleep revealed the truth. We dream for hours each night, cycling in and out of this strange state where the brain is wildly active, but the body is still. It was one of the most important discoveries in the history of sleep science, and it happened because someone paid attention to something that seemed, at first, like a mistake. Your first REM period of the night lasts only about 10 minutes. It's brief, almost tentative, like your brain is testing the waters. But as the night progresses, each REM period grows longer. By the final cycle, just before you wake, you might spend 30 to 40 minutes in continuous REM sleep, dreaming elaborate narratives that feel like they span days. This lengthening of REM periods is why sleep deprivation is so damaging. If you cut your sleep short, you're not just losing a little bit of each stage. You're losing almost all of your longest, deepest REM periods, the ones where the most important cognitive work happens. Your brain needs those final hours. It's been building toward them all night, preparing for the deepest dive into the subconscious. When you wake too early, you're interrupting the process before it's complete, leaving the work half finished. During REM sleep, your brain waves look almost identical to the patterns seen during waking. This is why REM is sometimes called paradoxical sleep. The brain is intensely active, burning energy, processing information, but the body is profoundly relaxed, almost paralyzed. If you were to look at an EEG readout of someone in REM sleep and someone who's awake, you'd have trouble telling them apart. The same fast, desynchronized brainwaves, the same electrical storm of activity. But there's one crucial difference. The person in REM sleep is turned inward. All that cognitive power, all that processing capacity is focused on the internal world. The brain is talking to itself, reviewing, reorganizing, making sense of things without the distraction of sensory input from the outside world. It's a kind of meditation, if meditation involved vivid hallucinations and emotional intensity. The brain, left to its own devices, becomes a storyteller, a philosopher, a poet. The pons, that small region in the brainstem, is the engine of REM sleep. It sends out rhythmic bursts of activity called PGO waves, pontogeniculo-occipital waves, that travel from the pons to the visual processing centers of the brain. These waves are thought to be responsible for the vivid imagery of dreams, the sudden scene changes, the flashes of color and movement. They're like lightning strikes in the brain, each one illuminating a different part of the neural landscape. PGO waves occur in clusters, in bursts, which might explain why dreams feel episodic, why they jump from scene to scene without smooth transitions. Your brain isn't creating a continuous film. It's creating a series of snapshots, and your consciousness is doing its best to stitch them together into something that feels like a coherent narrative. Sometimes it succeeds. Sometimes you wake up wondering, what on earth just happened? The neurotransmitter acetylcholine reaches its highest levels during REM sleep, even higher than during waking. Acetylcholine is crucial for learning and memory, for attention and sensory processing. It's the chemical that helps you focus, that makes experiences stick in your mind. During REM, it floods the brain, enhancing the vividness of dreams, strengthening the connections between neurons, helping to consolidate memories. At the same time, the neurotransmitters that keep you alert and anxious, norepinephrine, serotonin, histamine, drop to nearly zero. This creates a unique neurochemical environment that exists nowhere else in your waking life. Heightened perception and memory formation, without stress, without fear, without the need to react. You can revisit traumatic memories during REM sleep, and because norepinephrine is absent, you can process them without the full emotional charge. This is why REM sleep is thought to be essential for emotional regulation, for healing from difficult experiences. The brain can look at the hard things, can turn them over and examine them without being overwhelmed. One of the most fascinating functions of REM sleep is memory consolidation, particularly for procedural memories, the kind of learning that involves skills, patterns, and physical coordination. If you spend the day learning to play a musical instrument, or practicing a sport, or trying to master a new language, your performance will actually improve after a night of sleep, even without additional practice. During REM, the brain replays the neural patterns associated with that learning, strengthening the synapses, making the pathways more efficient. It's as if your brain is rehearsing while you sleep, running through the motions again and again until they become automatic. Musicians who sleep after practice sessions show measurable improvements in technique. Athletes who get adequate REM sleep have better motor control and reaction times. The learning doesn't stop when you close your eyes. It deepens. It becomes part of you. REM sleep also plays a critical role in emotional memory processing. The hippocampus and amygdala work together during REM to decide which emotional experiences from the day are worth keeping and which can be discarded. But here's the crucial part. The memories that are consolidated during REM sleep retain their factual content while losing some of their emotional intensity. You remember what happened, but it doesn't sting quite as much. This is the brain's way of protecting you from being overwhelmed by your own past. Imagine if every difficult moment retained its full emotional weight forever. You'd be paralyzed by accumulated grief and fear. REM sleep acts as a buffer, a gentle editor that says, yes, this happened and it mattered, but you don't have to feel it this intensely forever. It's a kind of mercy built into your biology. The absence of muscle tone during REM sleep, the paralysis that keeps you from acting out your dreams, is controlled by neurons in the pons that actively inhibit motor neurons in the spinal cord. This inhibition is so complete that even if your brain sends a signal to move, the signal doesn't reach your muscles. You're locked in place, safe from yourself. But occasionally, this system fails. In a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, the paralysis doesn't engage properly. and people physically act out their dreams, punching, kicking, even getting out of bed and moving around, all while still asleep. It's rare, and it's usually treatable, but it reveals just how important that paralysis is. Your dreams can be violent, chaotic, physically demanding. Your body needs to be still while your mind runs wild. The fact that this system works correctly for most people, most of the time, is a small miracle of neurobiology. REM sleep is also when the brain appears to engage in a process called synaptic homeostasis. Throughout the day, as you learn and experience new things, your brain forms new synaptic connections, strengthening some neural pathways and weakening others. But if this process continued unchecked, your brain would become oversaturated, cluttered with too many connections, unable to distinguish signal from noise. During sleep, particularly during REM, the brain prunes unnecessary connections, streamlining the network, making sure that the important pathways remain strong while the trivial ones fade. It's a kind of neural housekeeping, a way of maintaining efficiency. You wake up with a clearer mind, not just because you've rested, but because your brain has literally cleaned itself up, has organized its filing system, has made room for new information. The relationship between REM sleep and creativity has been studied extensively, and the findings are striking. People who are woken during REM sleep and immediately given creative problem-solving tasks perform significantly better than those woken during other sleep stages, or those who haven't slept at all. REM sleep seems to enhance the brain's ability to make distant associations, to connect ideas that don't seem related, to think outside the usual patterns. This is because the prefrontal cortex, which normally keeps your thinking logical and linear, is less active during REM. The brain is free to make wild connections, to leap from one idea to another without worrying about whether it makes sense. Some of the most famous creative breakthroughs in history, scientific discoveries, artistic innovations, solutions to seemingly impossible problems, have come to people in dreams. The brain, unshackled from logic, can see patterns that the waking mind would dismiss. Your eyes move during REM sleep because the same neural circuits that control eye movement when you're awake are active during dreams. If you're dreaming about watching a bird fly across the sky, your eyes might track that movement. If you're reading something in a dream, your eyes might move as if scanning text. The movements aren't random. They correspond to the content of the dream. Researchers have even been able to predict, with some accuracy, what a person is dreaming about based on their eye movement patterns. It's a strange intimacy, the idea that someone could watch your eyes move and know, roughly, what world you're inhabiting in that moment. Your eyes are giving you away, tracing the invisible landscapes you're walking through. The brain's temperature regulation changes during REM sleep. Your body loses some of its ability to regulate temperature through shivering or sweating, which is why the ambient temperature of your sleeping environment matters so much. If the room is too hot or too cold, you'll spend less time in REM sleep, and the REM periods you do have will be shorter and less restorative. Your brain needs a narrow temperature range to do its best work. This is why people often sleep better in cool rooms, why a warm bath before bed can help. You're creating the optimal conditions for your brain to cycle through sleep stages efficiently. It's not about comfort, though comfort helps. It's about giving your brain the environment it needs to perform its nightly maintenance. REM sleep deprivation has profound effects on mood, cognition, and emotional regulation. People who are selectively deprived of REM sleep, woken every time they enter that stage, become irritable, anxious, and have difficulty concentrating, even if they're getting plenty of other sleep stages. REM isn't optional. It's not a luxury, it's a biological necessity. Without it, the brain can't process emotions properly, can't consolidate certain types of memories, can't maintain the neural efficiency that keeps you functioning. Chronic REM deprivation is associated with increased risk of depression, anxiety disorders, and cognitive decline. Your brain needs to dream. It needs those hours of strange, vivid, emotionally charged narratives. They're not just entertainment. They're essential maintenance. There's a phenomenon called REM rebound, where if you're deprived of REM sleep for several nights, your brain will compensate by spending more time in REM once you're finally allowed to sleep undisturbed. It's as if the brain is catching up, making up for lost time, prioritizing the work that didn't get done. You might have especially long, vivid, intense dreams during REM rebound. Your brain is working overtime, processing everything that accumulated during the deprivation period. This is why people who quit certain medications or substances that suppress REM sleep often experience a flood of vivid dreams once they stop. Their brain is rebounding, reclaiming the REM time it was denied. The content of REM dreams tends to be more bizarre, more emotionally intense, and more narrative-driven than dreams from other sleep stages. Non-REM dreams, when they occur, are often more mundane, more thought-like, less visual. But REM dreams are where the strangeness lives, where the impossible becomes routine, where you might find yourself flying or talking to people who've been dead for years, or living in a house that's somehow both your childhood home and a place you've never seen before. The brain is making connections across time, across memory, across the boundaries of what's possible. It's not trying to make sense. It's trying to make meaning, which is a different thing entirely. The pineal gland, deep in the center of your brain, releases melatonin in response to darkness, helping to regulate your sleep-wake cycle. But melatonin doesn't just make you sleepy, it also influences the timing and duration of REM sleep. As melatonin levels rise in the evening, they help to initiate sleep, and as they gradually decline toward morning, REM periods become longer and more frequent. This is why your most vivid dreams often occur in the early morning hours, just before you wake. Your brain is riding the tail end of the melatonin curve, spending as much time as possible in that rich, strange state before the demands of waking consciousness return. REM sleep is found in all mammals and most birds, though the amount varies widely. Humans spend about 20–25% of their total sleep time in REM. Cats famously spend even more, but some animals, like dolphins and certain species of birds, have evolved the ability to sleep with only half their brain at a time, keeping the other half awake to watch for predators or maintain necessary functions. Even in these animals, the sleeping half of the brain cycles through REM. The need to dream, it seems, is so fundamental that evolution has found ways to preserve it even under the most challenging circumstances. Whatever REM sleep does, it's important enough that nature has protected it across millions of years, across countless species. And so, as you feel yourself sinking deeper now, as the boundary between waking and sleeping becomes harder to locate, know that your brain is preparing to enter this extraordinary state. Your eyes will begin to move beneath closed lids, tracking dreams you won't remember, but that will change you nonetheless. Your neurons will fire in patterns that mirror waking consciousness, but turned inward, focused on the work that can only happen in darkness. Memories will be sorted, emotions will be processed, connections will be made that your waking mind would never think to attempt. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to try. Your brain knows exactly what to do. It's been doing this every night of your life, and it will continue long after you've forgotten this moment. All you have to do is let go and trust that the machinery of sleep, ancient and precise, will carry you where you need to go. There's a moment, rare and startling, when you realize you're dreaming while the dream is still happening. The world doesn't collapse. The narrative doesn't end. Instead, something shifts. A kind of double consciousness emerges, where you're both the character in the story and the audience watching it unfold. You're asleep but aware, dreaming but awake to the fact of the dream. This is lucid dreaming, and it's one of the most fascinating intersections of consciousness and sleep that neuroscience has ever documented. It shouldn't be possible, according to everything we know about the sleeping brain. And yet it happens, spontaneously for some people, learnable for others, a state where the impossible rules of dreams meet the clarity of waking thought. The term lucid dreaming was coined by Dutch psychiatrist Frederik van Eden in 1913, though the phenomenon itself has been documented for centuries in various cultures. Tibetan Buddhist monks practiced something called dream yoga, a form of meditation aimed at maintaining awareness during sleep. Ancient Greek philosophers wrote about knowing they were dreaming, but Western science largely dismissed these reports as fantasy or misremembering until the 1970s, when researcher Stephen LaBerge developed a method to prove objectively that lucid dreaming was real. He trained himself to become lucid during dreams and then perform a predetermined eye movement pattern. Left, right, left, right, that could be detected on an EEG machine. When he entered REM sleep and became lucid, he moved his eyes in the agreed-upon pattern. The machine recorded it. He was asleep, dreaming, and simultaneously communicating with the waking world. It was the first verifiable proof that consciousness could persist in a limited but real way during sleep. Lucid dreaming occurs almost exclusively during REM sleep, that stage where dreams are most vivid and the brain is most active. But what makes a dream become lucid? Neuroimaging studies have revealed something remarkable. During lucid dreams, the prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain responsible for self-awareness, decision-making, and metacognition, shows increased activity compared to regular dreams. It's not as active as during full waking consciousness, but it's significantly more active than it should be during REM sleep. Somehow, this region partially wakes up, while the rest of the brain remains in the dream state. You gain just enough executive function to recognize the impossibility of what's happening, to realize that you're dreaming, but not so much that you wake up entirely. It's a delicate balance, a narrow band of consciousness that exists between two states. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, in particular, seems to be key to lucid dreaming. This region is involved in working memory and logical reasoning, the ability to hold information in mind and evaluate it critically. In regular dreams, this area is quiet, which is why you accept absurdities without question. But in lucid dreams, it lights up just enough to allow critical thinking. You can look at your hands and notice they have too many fingers. You can try to read text and watch it shift and change, revealing the dream's instability. You can remember your waking life, remember that you went to bed, remember that this can't be real. And once you have that knowledge, once you recognize the dream for what it is, a new kind of freedom emerges. The dream continues, but now you can participate consciously, can make choices, can explore with intention, rather than just being carried along by the narrative. One of the most reliable methods for inducing lucid dreams is called reality testing, performing small checks throughout the day to confirm whether you're awake or dreaming. You might look at your hands, try to push a finger through your palm, check a clock twice to see if the time changes, or ask yourself, am I dreaming? The logic is simple. If you make this a habit during waking hours, you'll eventually perform the same check during a dream. And in a dream, the results will be impossible. Your finger will pass through your palm. The clock will show a different time each time you look. The question, am I dreaming, will suddenly have an obvious answer. It's a way of training your brain to maintain a thread of self-awareness even during sleep, to carry a small piece of waking consciousness into the dream world. Another technique called MILD, MNM, induction of lucid dreams, involves setting an intention before sleep. As you're falling asleep, you repeat a phrase like, "The next time I'm dreaming, I will remember that I'm dreaming." You visualize yourself becoming lucid in a recent dream. Imagine recognizing the dream signs. Imagine the feeling of awareness dawning. The repetition and visualization create a kind of mental bookmark, a reminder that your sleeping brain can sometimes access. It doesn't work every time, and it requires practice, but studies have shown that people who use MILD regularly have significantly more lucid dreams than those who don't. You're essentially programming your subconscious, leaving yourself a message that you'll find later, in the dark. The WBTB technique, Wake Back to Bed, takes advantage of the fact that REM periods are longest in the early morning hours. You set an alarm to wake yourself after about 5 or 6 hours of sleep. Stay awake for 20 to 30 minutes, and then go back to sleep with the intention of becoming lucid. The brief period of wakefulness reactivates the prefrontal cortex, and when you fall back asleep, there's a higher chance that some of that activation will persist into the dream state. Many experienced lucid dreamers swear by this method, though it requires a willingness to interrupt your sleep and the discipline to actually go back to bed rather than staying awake. Once you're lucid in a dream, the experience can vary wildly. Some people report a rush of excitement so intense that it wakes them up immediately. The realization, "I'm dreaming," is so thrilling that it jolts them back to waking consciousness. Others find that they can maintain lucidity for extended periods, exploring the dream world with full awareness, making decisions, even manipulating the environment. You can decide to fly, and the dream will comply. You can summon people, change locations, ask dream characters questions. The dream becomes a kind of virtual reality that you're consciously navigating, a space where the normal rules don't apply, but your intentions still matter. It's not total control. The dream has its own momentum, its own logic, but it's a collaboration between your conscious will and your subconscious creativity. Neuroscientist Ursula Voss and her team discovered that lucid dreaming could be induced artificially by applying weak electrical currents to the scalp during REM sleep, specifically targeting the frontal regions of the brain. When they stimulated these areas at a frequency of 40 Hz, gamma waves associated with higher-order consciousness, subjects reported increased self-awareness in their dreams. They recognized they were dreaming. They could think critically about the dream content. The stimulation was essentially nudging the prefrontal cortex into a more active state without fully waking the person. It was external proof that lucid dreaming isn't magic or mysticism. It's a specific pattern of brain activity that can be measured, studied, and even induced. There's ongoing research into whether lucid dreaming can be used therapeutically, particularly for people who suffer from recurring nightmares. The idea is simple. If you can become lucid during a nightmare, you can change it. You can confront the threat, transform it, or simply choose to wake up. Studies with people who have PTSD-related nightmares have shown promising results. When taught lucid dreaming techniques, Some patients report fewer nightmares and less distress from the ones that do occur. The nightmares don't always disappear, but the sense of helplessness does. You're no longer just a victim in your own mind. You have agency, even in sleep. That shift from passive suffering to active participation can be profoundly healing. Lucid dreaming also offers a unique window into the nature of consciousness itself. Philosophers and neuroscientists have long debated what consciousness is, where it comes from, how it relates to brain activity. Lucid dreaming provides a natural experiment, a state where you're conscious but not awake, where you're experiencing a world that doesn't exist, where your brain is generating sensory input that feels completely real. It challenges the assumption that consciousness requires interaction with the external world. In a lucid dream, there is no external world, just your brain talking to itself, creating and experiencing simultaneously. And yet, you're undeniably conscious. You're aware, making decisions, forming memories. It suggests that consciousness might be more flexible, more independent of sensory input than we typically assume. Some experienced lucid dreamers report being able to use the dream state for practice and skill development. Musicians rehearse pieces, athletes run through movements, public speakers practice presentations, all within the dream. And because the motor cortex and sensory cortex are active during dreams, the brain is actually rehearsing the neural patterns associated with those activities. It's not as effective as real-world practice, but it's not nothing either. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between imagined movement and actual movement, especially in the heightened sensory environment of a dream. You're building neural pathways, strengthening connections, even while your body lies still. There's a curious phenomenon called dream stabilization, where lucid dreamers learn techniques to prevent themselves from waking up once they become aware. The most common method is to engage the senses, touching objects in the dream, looking closely at details, spinning in a circle. The theory is that by grounding yourself in the sensory experience of the dream, you reinforce the dream state and prevent the prefrontal cortex from becoming so active that it pulls you into full wakefulness. It's a balancing act, maintaining just enough awareness to know you're dreaming, but not so much that the dream collapses. Experienced lucid dreamers talk about it like surfing. You're riding a wave of consciousness, and if you lean too far in either direction, you'll fall. The frequency of lucid dreaming varies enormously between individuals. Some people have lucid dreams spontaneously several times a week without any training. Others practice for months and have only a handful of lucid experiences. There seems to be a genetic component. Some people's brains are simply more prone to that partial activation of the prefrontal cortex during REM sleep. But even for those who don't have frequent lucid dreams, the occasional experience can be profound. There's something deeply strange and wonderful about standing in a dream, fully aware that none of it is real, and yet feeling the ground beneath your feet, seeing the sky above you, experiencing it all with the full vividness of waking perception. It's a reminder that reality, as you experience it, is always a construction of your brain. The dream just makes that construction more obvious. Interestingly, people who meditate regularly, particularly those who practice mindfulness meditation, report higher rates of lucid dreaming. Meditation trains the same skill that lucid dreaming requires: metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe your own thoughts and experiences without being completely absorbed by them. When you meditate, you practice noticing when your mind wanders and gently bringing it back. When you lucid dream, you notice that you're dreaming and maintain that awareness. The mental muscle is the same. This has led some researchers to suggest that lucid dreaming and meditation might be accessing similar states of consciousness, similar ways of relating to experience. There's also a phenomenon called false awakening, where you dream that you've woken up, gone through your morning routine, started your day, only to actually wake up and realize it was all still part of the dream. Sometimes these false awakenings can chain together multiple layers deep, each one feeling completely real, until the next awakening reveals it as another dream. It's disorienting, occasionally unsettling, but also fascinating. It demonstrates just how convincingly your brain can simulate reality, how little it takes to fool your conscious mind into accepting the dream as real. And for lucid dreamers, false awakenings can be a clue. If you make reality testing a habit, you might catch the false awakening and become lucid within it. The question of whether you can get stuck in a lucid dream, unable to wake up, is one that many people worry about. The answer, according to all available research, is no. You cannot get trapped in a dream. REM periods have natural endpoints. They last anywhere from a few minutes to about 40 minutes, and then your brain cycles into a different sleep stage or toward waking. Even if you're lucid, even if you're deeply immersed in the dream, your biology will eventually pull you out. The worst that can happen is that you wake up feeling like you didn't rest well, like you were working all night instead of sleeping, which in a sense your prefrontal cortex was more active than it should have been during sleep. But you'll wake up. You always wake up. And perhaps that's the most reassuring thing about lucid dreaming, about all dreaming. It's temporary. No matter how vivid, how strange, how wonderful or terrifying the dream becomes, it will end. You will return to waking consciousness, to the familiar world, to your body in your bed. The dream is a place you visit, not a place you stay. And knowing that, you can relax into it, can explore without fear, can let the strangeness wash over you. Because morning always comes, the dream always ends, and you always find your way back. So tonight, if you find yourself in a dream and something seems impossible, if you notice the inconsistencies, the absurdities, the things that couldn't happen in waking life, pause, look around, ask yourself the question. You might discover that you're dreaming. And if you do, if that awareness dawns, don't panic. Don't try to control everything. Just observe. Just experience. You're standing in a place that exists nowhere but in your own mind, a world built from electricity and memory, and you're awake enough to know it. That's a gift. That's a kind of magic that no technology can replicate. Your brain doing what it does best, creating worlds and inviting you to explore them. Fear is older than language, older than civilization, older than the human species itself. It lives in the most ancient parts of your brain, in structures that existed long before your ancestors walked upright, before they built fires or told stories. And every night when you sleep, that ancient fear can surface in the form of nightmares. Dreams so intense, so threatening, that they can jolt you awake with your heart pounding, your breath shallow, your body flooded with adrenaline. Nightmares feel like a malfunction, like something going wrong. But what if they're not? What if nightmares are actually your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do, running simulations of danger, preparing you for threats, processing fears in the only safe space available, the theater of sleep? The amygdala, that almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep in your temporal lobe, is the brain's threat detection system. It's constantly scanning your environment for danger, for anything that might harm you. During waking hours, it's moderated by the prefrontal cortex, which can evaluate threats rationally, can say, that's just a shadow, not a predator. But during REM sleep, when the prefrontal cortex goes quiet, the amygdala is unleashed. It becomes hyperactive, sometimes up to 30% more active than during waking. Without the rational mind to moderate it, the amygdala generates scenarios of threat, of danger, of things going terribly wrong. These scenarios become nightmares. Your brain is essentially asking, what are you afraid of? And then showing you in vivid detail, without the comfort of logic to soften the edges. From an evolutionary perspective, nightmares might have served a crucial function: threat simulation. Our ancestors lived in a world full of genuine dangers, predators, hostile tribes. The individuals who could mentally rehearse responses to these threats, who could practice escape and defense strategies even in sleep, would have had a survival advantage. Nightmares are the brain's way of running drills, of preparing you for worst-case scenarios. You dream of being chased because your ancestors were chased. You dream of falling because falling was a real risk. You dream of social humiliation because social exclusion, in a tribal context, could mean death. The content changes with culture and context, but the underlying mechanism remains. Your brain is training you to survive. Children have nightmares more frequently than adults, with peak frequency occurring between ages 3 and 6. This makes evolutionary sense. Childhood is when you're most vulnerable, when you're learning about dangers, when your brain is building its threat detection database. A child's nightmare about monsters under the bed isn't random. It's the brain learning to be afraid of hidden dangers, of things that might attack when you're vulnerable and alone. The monster is a placeholder, a symbol for any threat that might emerge from darkness or concealment. As children grow and learn which threats are real and which are imaginary, nightmare frequency typically decreases. The brain refines its models, becomes more accurate in its threat assessment. But the mechanism never fully goes away. We never completely outgrow the need to rehearse danger. The content of nightmares is remarkably consistent across cultures. People everywhere dream of being chased, of falling, of losing loved ones, of being unable to move or speak when threatened. These are called universal nightmare themes, and they correspond to threats that were relevant throughout human evolutionary history. Being chased by a predator, falling from a height, social rejection or loss, physical paralysis in the face of danger. The specific imagery changes. Modern nightmares might feature car crashes or home invasions instead of saber-toothed tigers, but the underlying fears are ancient. Your brain is still running software designed for a world that no longer exists, still preparing you for dangers that, statistically, you'll probably never face. But the preparation continues, night after night, just in case. Nightmares are most common during the later REM periods of the night, when REM sleep is longest and dreams are most intense. This is also when the brain is doing its deepest emotional processing, when it's working through the experiences and anxieties of waking life. A nightmare isn't necessarily about the literal content of the dream. It's often about the emotional residue of your day, your week, your life. The stress you're carrying gets translated into dream imagery, gets expressed through the language of threat and danger. You might dream of being chased, not because you're literally afraid of being chased, but because you feel pursued by deadlines, by responsibilities, by expectations. The brain takes abstract anxiety and gives it a concrete form, something you can see and experience, even if you can't solve it. There's a phenomenon called nightmare rebound that occurs when people are under extreme stress or trauma. Initially, in the immediate aftermath of a traumatic event, nightmares might be frequent and intense. But if the person is prevented from sleeping, or if they use substances that suppress REM sleep, the nightmares don't go away, they accumulate. When REM sleep is finally allowed to occur normally, the nightmares come back with increased intensity and frequency. The brain is trying to process the trauma, trying to integrate the experience, and it will keep trying until the work is done. You can't suppress nightmares indefinitely. You can only postpone them. Eventually, the brain demands its chance to work through what happened. Recurrent nightmares, the same dream or theme repeating over weeks, months, or even years, often indicate unresolved emotional content. The brain is stuck on a particular fear or trauma, returning to it again and again, trying to find a resolution. In some cases, therapy techniques like imagery rehearsal therapy can help. The person consciously rewrites the nightmare while awake, imagining a different ending, a resolution, a sense of control or safety. Then, through repetition and intention, that new narrative can sometimes replace the nightmare. The brain accepts the revised version, integrates it, and the recurrent nightmare fades. It's not about denying the fear. It's about giving the brain a way to complete the processing, to move from threat to resolution. Interestingly, people who experience frequent nightmares often show enhanced creativity and emotional sensitivity during waking hours. There's a correlation between nightmare frequency and artistic ability, empathy, and openness to experience. This might be because the same brain that generates vivid, emotionally intense nightmares is also capable of vivid imagination, deep emotional resonance, and the ability to explore dark or difficult themes. The nightmare-prone brain is a sensitive instrument, attuned to nuance and emotion in ways that can be both a burden and a gift. The nightmares are the cost of that sensitivity, the shadow side of a mind that feels deeply. Not all frightening dreams are nightmares in the clinical sense. A nightmare is defined by its ability to wake you up, to pull you out of sleep with a sense of fear or dread. If you have a scary dream but sleep through it, or if you wake naturally at the end of a REM period and then remember the frightening content, that's just a bad dream, not a nightmare. The distinction matters because true nightmares indicate that the emotional intensity exceeded the brain's ability to process it within the dream state. Something was too much, too threatening, and the only solution was to abort the simulation and return to waking consciousness. Your brain hit an emergency stop button. Sleep paralysis, though not technically a nightmare, often accompanies nightmare-like experiences and has a clear evolutionary explanation. It occurs when you wake up before the rematonia, the muscle paralysis of REM sleep, has fully released. You're conscious, but you can't move. And because you're transitioning out of REM, you might still be experiencing dream imagery overlaid on your perception of the real room. This is why sleep paralysis is so often accompanied by hallucinations of threatening figures. The shadow person standing in the corner, the sense of a malevolent presence. Your amygdala is still active from the REM state, still generating threat signals, but now you're awake enough to perceive your actual environment. The two realities blend, creating an experience that feels absolutely terrifying and absolutely real. The cultural interpretation of sleep paralysis varies widely, but the experience itself is universal. In Newfoundland, it's called the Old Hag. In Japan, Kanashibari. In Egypt, El Jatham. Every culture has a name for it, a mythology to explain it. But the neuroscience is the same everywhere, a temporary mismatch between consciousness and muscle control, combined with residual REM state brain activity. Knowing this doesn't make the experience less frightening in the moment, but it can help afterward. can provide reassurance that what happened was a known phenomenon, not a supernatural event, not a sign of something wrong with your mind. There's evidence that nightmares serve a role in emotional regulation and resilience building. Children who have occasional nightmares and learn to cope with them may develop better anxiety management skills. The nightmare becomes a safe space to experience fear and practice recovery. You wake up, you realize it was just a dream, you calm yourself down, you go back to sleep. That cycle, fear, recognition, self-soothing, return to safety, is a valuable skill. It's a rehearsal not just for external threats, but for managing your own internal emotional states. The nightmare teaches you that you can survive fear, that intense emotion will pass, that you have the capacity to recover. Post-traumatic nightmares are different from ordinary nightmares in important ways. They tend to be more literal, more closely tied to the actual traumatic event. Instead of symbolic or metaphorical content, the dream replays the trauma directly, sometimes with photographic accuracy. This is the brain's attempt to process and integrate an experience that was too overwhelming to fully process when it happened. The hippocampus and amygdala are working together, trying to move the memory from active threat status to past event status. But sometimes the process gets stuck, and the nightmare becomes a loop, a broken record. This is where therapeutic intervention can help. Techniques like EMDR, or trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, can assist the brain in completing the processing that the nightmares alone can't finish. Some researchers believe that nightmares might also serve a social function. When you wake from a nightmare, you might seek comfort from a partner, a parent, a friend. You might talk about the dream, share the fear, receive reassurance. This strengthens social bonds, reinforces the support network that's crucial for survival. In ancestral environments, the person who woke the tribe with a cry of fear might have been alerting everyone to a real danger. Even if it was just a dream, the response, the gathering, the checking, the mutual reassurance would have strengthened group cohesion. We're social animals. Even our nightmares might be designed in part to connect us to each other. The neurotransmitter balance during nightmares is particularly interesting. While norepinephrine is typically absent during REM sleep, allowing for emotional processing without the full stress response, nightmares seem to involve a partial reactivation of the stress system. It's not as intense as a waking panic attack, but it's enough to flood the body with some adrenaline, to increase heart rate, to prepare for fight or flight. This is why you can wake from a nightmare with physical symptoms: sweating, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing. Your body responded to the dream threat as if it were real, at least partially. The boundary between simulation and reality, at the physiological level, is thinner than you might think. And yet, for all their intensity, nightmares are temporary. They end, you wake up, and the threat dissolves. The monster vanishes, the danger passes. You're safe in your bed, in your room, in the real world where the rules make sense, and the impossible doesn't happen. That transition from nightmare to waking is itself a kind of relief, a reminder that your mind can create hells, but cannot trap you in them. Morning always comes, consciousness always returns, and the nightmare, no matter how vivid, no matter how terrifying, becomes just a memory, just a story you tell yourself about what your brain did while you were sleeping. So if you dream of danger tonight, if your mind conjures threats and chases and things that make your heart race, remember, this is your brain doing its job. It's running simulations, processing fears, rehearsing responses to a world that once was, and in some ways still is, dangerous. You don't have to like nightmares. You don't have to welcome them, but you can understand them, can recognize them for what they are: ancient software, still running, still trying to keep you safe. And when you wake, when the nightmare releases you back into the quiet dark of your bedroom, you can take a breath, feel the solid reality of your bed beneath you, and know that you survived. Again, as you always do, as you always will, you are not alone in your dreaming. Right now, across the planet, millions of other minds are cycling through sleep, entering REM states, generating their own internal worlds. Dogs twitch and whimper, their paws moving as if running. Cats' whiskers quiver, their eyes darting beneath closed lids. But the phenomenon extends far beyond our mammalian companions. Birds dream. Reptiles might dream. Even octopuses, those alien intelligences of the deep ocean, show signs of something that looks remarkably like REM sleep. Dreaming, it seems, is not a human invention. It's an ancient biological process, refined and elaborated across millions of years of evolution, appearing in creatures so different from us that we share almost nothing except the fact that we sleep, and in sleeping, we dream. The discovery that animals dream began, like so many scientific breakthroughs, with careful observation. In the 1960s, French neuroscientist Michel Jouvet was studying cats and noticed that during REM sleep, if he lesioned the part of the brainstem responsible for muscle paralysis, the cats would physically act out their dreams. They would stalk invisible prey, pounce on nothing, groom themselves, exhibit all the behaviors of waking cats, but their eyes remained closed. Their brain waves showed they were in REM sleep. They were asleep, dreaming, and their dreams had content related to their waking behaviors. It was the first concrete evidence that animals don't just sleep. They have experiences during sleep, internal narratives that mirror their waking lives. Rats, those ubiquitous subjects of neuroscience research, have provided some of the most detailed evidence of animal dreaming. When a rat navigates a maze during the day, specific neurons in its hippocampus fire in sequence, creating a pattern unique to that particular route. During subsequent REM sleep, those exact same neurons fire in the exact same sequence, at a slightly faster speed. The rat is replaying the maze in its mind, running through the route again, consolidating the spatial memory. Researchers can actually predict, based on the neural firing pattern, which part of the maze the rat is dreaming about at any given moment. The rat is mentally retracing its steps, and the precision is remarkable. This isn't vague, abstract neural activity. This is memory replay, detailed and specific. What makes the rat studies even more extraordinary is that the rats don't just replay successful routes. They also replay mistakes, dead ends, wrong turns, as if the brain is analyzing what went wrong, learning from errors even during sleep. Sometimes, the neural replay shows the rat taking a route it never actually took during waking hours, as if it's imagining alternative paths, exploring possibilities. The dreaming rat brain is not just a recorder. It's an active problem solver, a simulator, running scenarios, testing hypotheses about how to navigate its world more efficiently. Dogs spend about 10% of their sleep time in REM, and anyone who's watched a sleeping dog has probably seen the signs: the rapid eye movements, the twitching paws, the muffled barks and whines. What are they dreaming about? Based on what we know about memory consolidation and the content of human dreams, it's likely they're dreaming about their daily experiences, chasing squirrels, playing with other dogs, interacting with their humans, The same brain structures that generate dreams in humans are present in dogs. The same neurotransmitter patterns, the same REM sleep characteristics. There's no reason to believe their subjective experience during dreams is fundamentally different from ours. They're reliving their days, processing their emotions, perhaps even problem-solving in their sleep, just as we do. Interestingly, the size of the dog affects how much they dream. Smaller dogs tend to have more frequent but shorter REM periods. A small terrier might enter REM every 10 minutes and dream for only a minute or so. Larger dogs have longer, less frequent REM periods. A Great Dane might dream for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, but cycle into REM less often. The reason for this size-related difference isn't entirely clear, but it might relate to metabolic rate, brain size relative to body size, or the different evolutionary pressures that shaped different breeds. Regardless of size, though, all dogs dream. The Chihuahua and the Saint Bernard are both, in their own ways, wandering through internal landscapes every night. Birds present a fascinating case because their brain structure is quite different from mammals, yet they clearly experience REM sleep. Zebra finches, small songbirds studied extensively in sleep research, show neural activity during sleep that precisely matches the patterns produced when they sing during the day. The neurons that control their song fire in the exact sequence of a particular melody, note for note, even though the bird is silent and asleep. They're practicing their songs in their dreams, rehearsing the complex motor sequences required for courtship and territorial displays. Young birds learning their songs show even more intense replay during sleep, suggesting that dreaming plays a crucial role in skill acquisition. The bird is teaching itself to sing, and much of that teaching happens while it sleeps. Even more remarkably, researchers have found that the quality of a bird's sleep affects the quality of its song the next day. Birds that are sleep-deprived produce less accurate songs, with more errors and variations. The neural rehearsal during REM sleep isn't optional. It's essential for maintaining the precision of the learned behavior. This has profound implications for understanding human learning and memory. If a bird needs to dream about singing in order to sing well, perhaps we need to dream about our skills, our knowledge, our daily challenges in order to perform them well when we're awake. The dream isn't separate from waking life. It's an integral part of the learning process. Crows and ravens, among the most intelligent of birds, show particularly complex sleep patterns. These corvids are known for their problem-solving abilities, their use of tools, their capacity for planning, and even what appears to be abstract thought. During sleep, their brain activity suggests they're processing complex information, perhaps replaying social interactions or problem-solving scenarios. There's even evidence that corvids might experience something like episodic memory during dreams, the ability to mentally revisit specific events from their past, complete with contextual details. They might remember where they cached food, who they interacted with, what strategies worked or failed. The dream becomes a library of experience, available for consultation. Marine mammals face a unique challenge. They need to surface regularly to breathe, which means they can't afford to be completely unconscious. Dolphins and whales have evolved a remarkable solution called unihemispheric sleep. One half of the brain sleeps, while the other half remains awake, monitoring the environment and controlling breathing. The two hemispheres take turns, trading off every few hours. But here's what's extraordinary. Even during unihemispheric sleep, the sleeping hemisphere shows signs of REM activity. The dolphin is half awake and half dreaming simultaneously. What that subjective experience might be like is almost impossible to imagine, but it suggests that the need for REM sleep is so fundamental that evolution found a way to preserve it even under the most challenging circumstances. Seals and sea lions, which can sleep both in water and on land, show different sleep patterns depending on their environment. On land, they sleep like terrestrial mammals, with both hemispheres sleeping simultaneously and clear REM periods. But in water, they switch to unihemispheric sleep, keeping one hemisphere alert. The brain adapts to the demands of the environment, prioritizing safety while still ensuring that REM sleep happens. The flexibility is remarkable. The same brain, the same animal, using completely different sleep strategies depending on context. Reptiles were long thought not to experience REM sleep, but recent research has challenged that assumption. Bearded dragons, a species of lizard, show sleep states that share characteristics with mammalian REM. Rapid eye movements, muscle twitches, and distinct patterns of brain activity. The REM periods are shorter and less frequent than in mammals, but they're there. If reptiles dream, it means the evolutionary origin of REM sleep might date back more than 300 million years to the common ancestor of reptiles and mammals. Dreaming might be older than we ever imagined, a fundamental feature of complex nervous systems, not a recent innovation of warm-blooded creatures. And then there are octopuses, those 8-armed enigmas, whose intelligence evolved along a completely different path from vertebrates. In 2200, researchers observed octopuses during sleep and documented something astonishing: periods of active sleep where the animal's skin changed colors and textures rapidly, cycling through patterns similar to those displayed during waking behaviors, like hunting or camouflage. Their eyes moved beneath closed lids. Their arms twitched. It looked, for all the world, like REM sleep. If octopuses dream, and the evidence suggests they might, it means that dreaming evolved independently at least twice in the history of life on Earth. It means that when nervous systems reach a certain level of complexity, when brains become sophisticated enough to model the world and learn from experience, dreaming emerges as a solution to the problem of memory consolidation and cognitive maintenance. The octopus presents a particular mystery because its nervous system is so radically different from ours. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are not in its brain, but distributed throughout its 8 arms. Each arm has a degree of autonomy, can solve problems independently, can even continue moving and responding to stimuli after being severed from the body. So when an octopus dreams, what is dreaming? Is it just the central brain? Or are the arms somehow participating in the dream state as well? We don't know. But watching an octopus cycle through camouflage patterns during sleep, turning mottled brown, then smooth white, then suddenly flushing red, feels like witnessing something profound, like catching a glimpse of an utterly alien form of consciousness, processing its utterly alien experiences. The duration and frequency of REM sleep varies widely across species, and the pattern correlates with factors like brain size, metabolic rate, and ecological niche. Predators tend to have more REM sleep than prey animals, possibly because prey species can't afford to be as deeply unconscious. They need to remain alert to threats even while sleeping. Humans, as omnivores with relatively few natural predators in modern environments, spend about 2025% of sleep in REM. Cats, apex predators in their size class, spend even more. But rabbits, perpetual prey animals, have very short, infrequent REM periods. The amount you dream might be related to how safe you are, how much you can afford to turn your attention inward without risking your survival. Elephants, despite their large brains and complex social lives, sleep very little compared to humans, only about 4 hours per night, and spend even less time in REM, sometimes as little as 30 minutes. Yet they're highly intelligent, with excellent memories and sophisticated social behaviors. This suggests that either they're extraordinarily efficient at memory consolidation, or that some of the functions we associate with REM sleep might be accomplished through other means in elephants. It's a reminder that evolution doesn't produce identical solutions to the same problems. Different species, different brains, different strategies for maintaining cognitive function. Hibernating animals present another puzzle. During hibernation, body temperature drops dramatically and most brain activity slows to a crawl. But periodically, hibernating animals will warm up slightly and enter sleep states that include REM. They're burning precious energy reserves to dream. Why? The leading theory is that even during hibernation, the brain needs to perform maintenance, needs to consolidate whatever minimal experiences are occurring, needs to keep neural pathways from degrading during the long months of inactivity. The dream is so important that the animal will interrupt its energy-saving hibernation to make sure it happens. Primates, our closest relatives, show REM sleep patterns very similar to humans. Chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans all have complex dream lives, judging by their sleep architecture and behavior during REM periods. They show the same rapid eye movements, the same muscle twitches, the same brainwave patterns. Given their cognitive sophistication, their rich social lives, and their capacity for tool use and problem solving, it's almost certain that their dreams are complex, narrative, emotionally rich. They might dream of social interactions, of foraging challenges, of threats and opportunities. They might even have something like nightmares, processing fears and anxieties through the same mechanisms we use. There's something deeply humbling about realizing that dreaming is not uniquely human. We're part of a vast community of dreamers, from the smallest songbird to the largest whale, from our primate cousins to the utterly alien octopus. We all share this nightly ritual of turning inward, of replaying and processing and consolidating, of generating internal worlds that feel real while they're happening. The content differs. You're not dreaming about catching fish or singing territorial songs, but the underlying process is the same. Your brain is doing what brains do, what they've been doing for hundreds of millions of years, making sense of experience, preparing for the future, maintaining the intricate machinery of consciousness. And perhaps there's comfort in that. You're not alone in the strangeness of dreaming, in the nightly journey into impossible landscapes. Somewhere, a dog is chasing dream rabbits through dream fields. A bird is singing a silent song, perfecting each note. An octopus is changing colors in its sleep, perhaps reliving the hunt, perhaps experiencing something we can't even imagine. You're all doing the same essential work, all participating in the same ancient process. The dream connects you not just to your own past and future, but to the deep history of life itself, to the first creatures whose brains became complex enough to need this strange essential maintenance. You dream because you have a brain sophisticated enough to require it. You dream because you're alive, and consciousness, in all its forms, needs time to talk to itself in the dark. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, as your own REM periods begin, know that you're joining a chorus that spans the planet, that includes creatures in the ocean depths and the forest canopy. In burrows and nests and dens, you're all dreaming together, each in your own way, each processing your own version of reality. And in the morning, you'll all wake, carrying forward whatever your dreams accomplished, ready to live another day in the waking world. The dream is the bridge between who you were yesterday and who you'll be tomorrow. And that bridge, it turns out, is one of the oldest structures in the architecture of complex life. Your dreams are not sealed off from the world. Even as you sleep, even as your consciousness turns inward and constructs impossible narratives, your senses remain active, quietly monitoring the environment. A sound in the room can become a ringing phone in the dream. The scent of flowers drifting through an open window can transform into a garden you're walking through. The temperature of the air, the pressure of blankets, the quality of light filtering through your eyelids, all of it gets woven into the fabric of the dream, translated into the language of your subconscious. Your sleeping brain is a master improviser, taking whatever sensory information arrives and incorporating it seamlessly into the ongoing narrative. The boundary between inner and outer worlds is more porous than you might imagine. Smell is perhaps the most direct route into the dreaming mind. The olfactory bulb, which processes scent, has direct connections to the hippocampus and amygdala, the very structures most active during dreaming. Unlike other senses, smell doesn't get routed through the thalamus first. It goes straight to the emotional and memory centers of the brain. This is why scents are so powerfully linked to memory, why a particular fragrance can instantly transport you to a specific moment in your past. And during sleep, this connection becomes even more pronounced. Studies have shown that exposing sleeping subjects to pleasant scents like lavender or rose can influence the emotional tone of their dreams, making them more positive, more peaceful. The scent doesn't wake you. It simply colors the dream, shifts its atmosphere, guides it toward gentler territory. Conversely, unpleasant odors can darken the emotional landscape of dreams. In one study, researchers exposed sleeping participants to the smell of rotten eggs during REM sleep. The subjects didn't wake, but when asked about their dreams later, they reported more negative content, more anxiety, more unpleasant scenarios. The smell became a kind of emotional undertone, a subtle influence that the conscious mind never registered, but the dreaming mind absorbed completely. Your nose is always working, always sampling the air, and the information it gathers shapes your internal experience, even when you're not aware of it. The phenomenon of scent-triggered memory, called the Proustian effect after Marcel Proust's famous passage about a Madeleine cake evoking childhood memories, operates powerfully during sleep. If you fall asleep in a room scented with something associated with a particular memory, say the perfume a loved one wore, or the smell of pine trees from a childhood camping trip, your dreams are more likely to incorporate elements of those memories. The scent acts as a retrieval cue, pulling up associated experiences from long-term storage, making them available to the dream-weaving machinery of REM sleep. You might not dream about the literal memory, but the emotional texture, the people, the settings, might all appear summoned by molecules in the air. Lavender has been studied extensively for its effects on sleep and dreams. The scent contains compounds like linalool and linolyl acetate that have mild sedative properties, interacting with neurotransmitter systems to promote relaxation. People who sleep in rooms scented with lavender not only fall asleep faster and sleep more deeply, but they also report dreams with less anxiety and more positive emotional content. The scent is working on multiple levels. Chemically, by influencing brain chemistry, and psychologically, by creating associations with calm and safety. Your grandmother, who kept lavender sachets in her linen closet, might have understood something that science is only now confirming. Sound, too, infiltrates dreams with remarkable ease. The auditory cortex remains responsive during sleep, processing sounds from the environment and deciding which ones are important enough to wake you and which can be incorporated into the dream. A car alarm outside might become a fire alarm in the dream. Rainfall can become a shower running, or waves on a beach, or any number of water-related scenarios. The brain takes the raw auditory input and translates it into dream content that makes sense within the narrative you're experiencing. It's protecting your sleep, trying to explain away the disturbance without pulling you into full wakefulness. Music is particularly interesting because it can influence not just the content of dreams, but their emotional quality and even their narrative structure. Studies have found that people who fall asleep listening to music often incorporate musical elements into their dreams, hearing songs, attending concerts, even composing music within the dream. The type of music matters. Slow, gentle music tends to produce calmer, more contemplative dreams. Fast, energetic music can lead to more active, dynamic dream scenarios. The rhythm and emotional tone of the music become a kind of soundtrack for the dream, shaping its pacing and mood. There's evidence that certain types of sound can enhance memory consolidation during sleep. In experiments where people learn information paired with a specific sound, say, learning vocabulary words while a particular tone plays, and then that same sound is played during subsequent sleep, the memory for that information is strengthened. The sound acts as a cue, reactivating the neural networks associated with the learning, encouraging the brain to prioritize that information during its nightly consolidation work. You can, in a sense, remind your sleeping brain what to focus on, what to strengthen, what to keep. The phenomenon called targeted memory reactivation has opened fascinating possibilities for learning during sleep. In one study, people learned to associate specific objects with specific locations on a grid. Each object-location pair was accompanied by a unique sound. During subsequent slow-wave sleep, researchers played half of those sounds. When participants woke and were tested, they remembered the locations associated with the replayed sounds significantly better than the locations that weren't cued during sleep. The sleeping brain was selectively strengthening specific memories based on auditory cues. It's not learning new information from scratch. That doesn't work. But it's prioritizing and strengthening existing memories, making them more durable, more accessible. White noise and pink noise, steady, consistent sounds that mask other environmental noises, can improve sleep quality by creating a stable auditory environment. When the soundscape is consistent, your brain doesn't have to constantly evaluate new sounds, doesn't have to decide whether each creak or distant voice is a threat. The result is deeper, more continuous sleep with less fragmentation. And deeper sleep means more efficient memory consolidation, more restorative rest, more vivid and coherent dreams. The absence of disruptive sound is itself a kind of sensory gift to the sleeping brain. Binaural beats, an auditory illusion created when two slightly different frequencies are played in each ear, have gained popularity as a sleep aid, though the scientific evidence is mixed. The theory is that the brain perceives a third tone, the difference between the two frequencies, and that this can influence brainwave patterns. Some people report that binaural beats help them fall asleep faster or experience more vivid dreams. But controlled studies have produced inconsistent results. It might work for some people through expectation and relaxation, even if the mechanism isn't what proponents claim. The placebo effect, after all, is still in effect. still produces real changes in brain chemistry and subjective experience. Light is perhaps the most powerful external influence on sleep and dreaming, though its effects are more about timing and sleep architecture than direct dream content. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of neurons in the hypothalamus, acts as your brain's master clock, regulating circadian rhythms based primarily on light exposure. When light hits your retina, even through closed eyelids, it sends signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which then influences the production of melatonin, the hormone that promotes sleep. Bright light suppresses melatonin. Darkness allows it to rise. This is why exposure to screens before bed can disrupt sleep. The blue light mimics daylight, telling your brain it's not time to sleep yet. But even during sleep, light continues to influence your brain. If you sleep in a room that's not completely dark, if street lights filter through curtains or a digital clock glows on the nightstand, your brain registers that light. It doesn't wake you, but it can reduce the depth of your sleep, shorten REM periods, and fragment your sleep cycles. The brain never fully commits to deep sleep if there's ambient light suggesting it might be daytime. Evolutionary, this makes sense. Our ancestors needed to be responsive to the approach of dawn, needed to wake with a light. But in the modern world, where artificial light is everywhere, this sensitivity can work against us. Complete darkness, or as close to it as you can achieve, allows the brain to produce melatonin at optimal levels and to cycle through sleep stages without interruption. People who sleep in very dark rooms report more vivid dreams, longer REM periods, and better overall sleep quality. The darkness is a signal of safety, of night, of the time when it's appropriate to fully surrender to unconsciousness. Your brain trusts the dark in a way it can never quite trust the light. Red light, interestingly, has less impact on melatonin production than other wavelengths. If you need some light in your sleeping environment, perhaps for safety or because complete darkness makes you anxious, red light is the least disruptive option. It provides enough illumination to navigate by without significantly suppressing melatonin or fragmenting sleep. Some people use red-tinted nightlights or red bulbs in bedside lamps for this reason. The wavelength matters. Blue and green light are the most alerting, the most likely to tell your brain it's daytime. Red light whispers rather than shouts. Temperature is another sensory factor that profoundly affects dreaming. Your body's core temperature naturally drops during sleep, reaching its lowest point in the early morning hours. This temperature decrease is actually necessary for initiating and maintaining sleep. If the ambient temperature is too warm, your body can't cool down properly, and sleep becomes fragmented and shallow. REM sleep, in particular, is sensitive to temperature. During REM, your body loses some of its ability to regulate temperature through shivering or sweating, which means you're more dependent on the environment to maintain a comfortable range. The ideal sleeping temperature for most people is between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit, cool enough to allow the body's natural temperature drop, but not so cold that you're uncomfortable. When the temperature is in this range, people spend more time in deep sleep and REM sleep, and they report more vivid, more memorable dreams. The coolness seems to facilitate the brain's nightly work, allowing it to focus on internal processes rather than constantly adjusting to thermal discomfort. Interestingly, the temperature of specific body parts can influence dreams. There's a phenomenon where having cold feet can actually disrupt sleep and lead to more fragmented, less pleasant dreams. The body prioritizes keeping the core warm, and if your extremities are cold, it's a signal that something might be wrong, that you might be in danger of hypothermia. The brain remains slightly more alert, slightly more vigilant, and that vigilance can bleed into the dream content, creating scenarios of discomfort or threat. Warm socks, it turns out, might be a simple intervention for better dreams. Touch and physical sensation also weave into dreams in fascinating ways. The pressure of blankets can become the weight of water if you're dreaming of swimming, or the embrace of another person, or the sensation of being trapped. The position of your body influences dream content. People who sleep on their stomachs report more dreams involving restriction or difficulty breathing. Those who sleep on their backs are more prone to sleep paralysis and the accompanying hallucinations. Your body's physical state is constantly feeding information to your dreaming brain, and that information gets incorporated into the narrative. Weighted blankets, which have become popular for anxiety and sleep disorders, might influence dreams through deep pressure stimulation. The gentle, consistent pressure can increase serotonin and melatonin production, while decreasing cortisol, the stress hormone. People who use weighted blankets often report feeling more secure, more grounded, and some say their dreams are less anxious, more peaceful. The physical sensation of being held, even by an inanimate object, might provide a sense of safety that the dreaming brain recognizes and responds to. There's even evidence that the phase of the moon might influence sleep and dreams, though the mechanism is still debated. Some studies have found that people sleep less deeply and have more fragmented sleep during the full moon, possibly due to the increased ambient light, or possibly due to some other factor we don't yet understand. Anecdotally, people report stranger, more vivid dreams around the full moon. Whether this is a real biological effect or a cultural expectation that becomes self-fulfilling is unclear, but the correlation has been observed across different cultures and time periods. The modern sleeping environment is full of sensory inputs that our ancestors never encountered. The hum of electronics, the glow of LED lights, the electromagnetic fields from devices, the chemical off-gassing from synthetic materials. We don't yet fully understand how all of these factors influence sleep and dreaming, but we know that the brain is exquisitely sensitive to its environment. Every sound, every scent, every photon of light is being processed, evaluated, and potentially woven into the dream. You're not sleeping in isolation. You're sleeping in a sensory ecosystem, and that ecosystem shapes your internal experience. And so, as you prepare for sleep tonight, consider the environment you're creating for your dreaming mind. The darkness you allow, the sounds you permit or exclude, the scents in the air, the temperature of the room, the weight and texture of your blankets. All of it matters. All of it will be translated into the language of dreams, will become part of the narrative your brain constructs through the night. You can't control your dreams directly, but you can shape the conditions that influence them. You can create a space that invites deep rest, vivid dreams, and the kind of sleep that leaves you restored. The dream begins before you close your eyes. It begins with the world you build around yourself, the sensory landscape you choose to inhabit. Make it gentle, make it dark, make it quiet. And then let go, trusting that your brain will take those conditions and weave them into something extraordinary. There's a territory between waking and sleeping that most people pass through so quickly they barely notice it. But sometimes you linger there, suspended in a state that's neither fully conscious nor fully asleep. Images flash behind your closed eyes. Faces, landscapes, geometric patterns that shift and morph. You might hear voices, snatches of conversation, music that isn't playing. Your thoughts become strange, non-linear, dreamlike, but you're still aware that you're lying in bed, still tethered to waking reality. This is hypnagogia, the threshold state, and it's one of the most fascinating and least understood phases of the sleep cycle. It's where creativity sparks, where hallucinations bloom, where the boundary between self and world becomes beautifully, terrifyingly uncertain. Hypnagogia occurs during the transition from wakefulness to sleep, typically during the first few minutes after you close your eyes and begin to drift. Your brainwaves are shifting from the alert beta waves of waking consciousness to the slower alpha and theta waves of light sleep. But the transition isn't smooth or instantaneous. Different parts of your brain fall asleep at different rates, creating a patchwork state where some neural networks are still active, while others have already shut down. The visual cortex might be generating imagery, while the prefrontal cortex responsible for logical evaluation is already offline. You see things, but you don't question them. You experience without analyzing. The imagery of hypnagogia is remarkably consistent across individuals. People report seeing faces, often strangers, sometimes distorted or morphing from one person to another. Geometric patterns are common. Spirals, lattices, tunnels of light, fractals that expand and contract. Some see landscapes, cities, rooms they've never been in. The images are usually silent, fleeting, appearing and dissolving without narrative connection. They're not quite dreams. They lack the immersive quality, the sense of being inside the experience. You're watching them, aware that they're not real, but unable to control or predict what appears next. It's like flipping through channels on a television you can't turn off. These hypnagogic hallucinations are thought to arise from the same mechanisms that generate dreams, but without the full commitment of REM sleep. The thalamus, which normally filters sensory input, begins to disengage from external stimuli and instead amplifies internal neural noise, random firing patterns that the visual cortex interprets as images. Without the organizing influence of waking consciousness, these images remain fragmentary, disconnected. They're the raw material of dreams, not yet woven into narrative. Some researchers believe that hypnagogia offers a window into the brain's default image generation process, the baseline activity that's usually suppressed by the demands of processing actual visual information from the eyes. Hypnagogic hallucinations can involve other senses as well. Auditory hallucinations are particularly common. Hearing your name called, hearing music, hearing conversations. These sounds can be startlingly clear and realistic, distinct enough that people sometimes get out of bed to check if someone actually spoke. The auditory cortex, like the visual cortex, is generating content based on internal activity rather than external input. It's practicing, in a sense, running through patterns it knows, creating sound without acoustic waves. The experience can be unsettling, but it's completely normal, a natural consequence of the brain's transition between states. There's a phenomenon called the hypnagogic jerk or sleep start, a sudden, involuntary muscle spasm that often occurs just as you're falling asleep, sometimes accompanied by a sensation of falling. You might jolt awake, heart racing, convinced for a moment that you were actually falling. The exact cause isn't fully understood, but one theory suggests it's a misfiring of the motor system as it transitions from waking control to sleep paralysis. Another theory proposes it's an evolutionary vestige, a reflex left over from our tree-dwelling ancestors who needed to catch themselves if they started to fall while sleeping in branches. Regardless of the cause, it's harmless, just another quirk of the borderland between consciousness and sleep. Hypnagogia has long been associated with creativity and problem-solving. Thomas Edison famously used a technique to harvest hypnagogic insights. He would sit in a chair holding ball bearings in his hands, positioned over metal plates. As he drifted into hypnagogia, his muscles would relax, the ball bearings would drop and clang against the plates, waking him. He would then immediately write down whatever thoughts or images had appeared in that threshold state. Salvador Dali used a similar method with a key and a plate. Many artists, inventors, and scientists have reported that their best ideas come not during full wakefulness or deep sleep, but in that liminal space between, where logic loosens, but awareness remains. The reason hypnagogia might enhance creativity is that it allows access to associative non-linear thinking without the critical filter of the fully awake prefrontal cortex. Ideas can combine in unusual ways. Connections that would be dismissed as nonsensical during waking thought are allowed to form. The brain is in a state of relaxed attention, open to novelty, not yet committed to the narrative structure of dreams, but no longer bound by the rigid logic of waking consciousness. It's a sweet spot for insight, for seeing patterns that the rational mind might overlook. Hypnopompia is the mirror image of hypnagogia, the transition from sleep to waking. It involves similar hallucinations and strange mental states, but it's often more intense because you're emerging from dreams, carrying some of that dream content with you into waking consciousness. You might see dream imagery overlaid on your actual bedroom, might hear dream sounds continuing even as you become aware of your physical surroundings. The two realities blend for a moment before the dream fully dissolves. Hypnopompic hallucinations can be more disturbing than hypnagogic ones because you're more alert, more aware that what you're seeing shouldn't be there, yet unable to make it stop. Sleep paralysis is perhaps the most frightening experience associated with the borderlands of sleep. It occurs when you wake up before the REM atonia, the muscle paralysis that prevents you from acting out dreams, has fully released. You're conscious, your eyes might be open, you can see your actual environment, but you cannot move. You cannot speak, you can barely breathe, or at least it feels that way, because the muscles that control deep breathing are still inhibited. And because you're transitioning out of REM sleep, your brain might still be generating dream content, particularly the threat detection activity of the amygdala. This creates the perfect storm for terrifying hallucinations. The hallucinations during sleep paralysis tend to fall into three categories. The first is the intruder, a sense of a threatening presence in the room, often perceived as a shadowy figure standing nearby, watching. The second is the incubus, a feeling of pressure on the chest, difficulty breathing, sometimes interpreted as something sitting on you or holding you down. The third is vestibular motor hallucinations, sensations of floating, flying, falling, or out-of-body experiences. These categories appear across cultures and throughout history, suggesting they arise from universal features of brain function during this state, rather than cultural conditioning. The neuroscience of sleep paralysis involves a mismatch between different brain systems. The motor cortex is awake and trying to send movement signals, but the brainstem is still inhibiting those signals from reaching the muscles. This creates a profound sense of helplessness and panic. Meanwhile, the amygdala, still in its hyperactive REM state, is generating threat signals without the moderating influence of the prefrontal cortex. The brain interprets the paralysis as evidence of danger. I can't move, therefore something must be wrong. Therefore there must be a threat. And then generates a hallucination to match that interpretation. The shadow figure, the malevolent presence, is the brain's attempt to explain the fear it's already feeling. Sleep paralysis is surprisingly common. Studies suggest that between 8 and 50% of people will experience it at least once in their lifetime, with higher rates among students, shift workers, and people with irregular sleep schedules. It's more likely to occur when you're sleep deprived, when you sleep on your back, or when your sleep schedule is disrupted. The experience typically lasts only a few seconds to a few minutes, though it can feel much longer. The paralysis always ends. Either you fall back into sleep, or the rematonia fully releases and you regain movement. You cannot get stuck in sleep paralysis. Your biology won't allow it. Cultural interpretations of sleep paralysis vary widely, but the experience itself is universal. In Newfoundland, it's the old hag who sits on your chest. In Japan, it's kanashibari, being bound by invisible forces. In Thailand, Phai Am, a ghost that holds you down. In Egypt, El Jafum, a demon. In Mexico, Subirse el Muerto, the dead climbing on you. Every culture has developed mythology to explain this terrifying but natural phenomenon. Understanding the neuroscience doesn't make the experience less frightening in the moment, but it can provide enormous relief afterward. What felt like a supernatural attack was actually just your brain waking up before your body, a temporary glitch in the sleep-wake transition. There are techniques for managing sleep paralysis if you're prone to it. The most important is simply knowing what it is, understanding that it's temporary and harmless. That knowledge alone can reduce the panic. Some people learn to focus on trying to move just one small body part, a finger, a toe, which can sometimes break the paralysis. Others focus on controlling their breathing, which isn't fully paralyzed, using slow, deliberate breaths to calm the panic response. And some simply choose to relax into it, to observe the experience without fighting it, knowing it will pass. The paralysis feeds on fear. The less you resist, the less distressing it becomes. Interestingly, some people who experience frequent sleep paralysis learn to use it as a gateway to lucid dreaming. If you remain calm during the paralysis and allow yourself to drift back into sleep while maintaining awareness, you can sometimes enter directly into a lucid dream. The paralysis becomes a signal. I'm in the borderland. I'm close to dreaming. I can choose to step into the dream consciously. It requires practice and a degree of comfort, with the paralysis that most people understandably don't want to develop. But it demonstrates that even this frightening state can be understood, managed, and even utilized. The borderlands of sleep, hypnagogia, hypnopompia, sleep paralysis, remind us that consciousness is not binary. You're not simply awake or asleep. There are gradations, transition states, moments when you're both and neither. These in-between states can be strange, sometimes unsettling, but they're also windows into the mechanics of consciousness itself. They show us how perception is constructed, how the brain generates experience, how fragile and contingent our sense of reality actually is. The solid, stable, waking world is just one mode of consciousness, one configuration of neural activity. The borderlands show us the seams, the places where that configuration is coming together or falling apart. And so, as you feel yourself drifting tonight, as the images begin to flicker behind your closed eyes, as your thoughts become loose and strange, don't be alarmed. You're entering the threshold, the ancient borderland that every sleeping human has passed through. The faces you see, the sounds you hear, the strange sensations, they're all part of the transition, all evidence of your brain shifting gears, preparing for the deeper journey of sleep and dreams. You might jerk awake with the sensation of falling. You might hear your name called by a voice that isn't there. You might, On rare occasions, wake to find yourself paralyzed, unable to move, aware of shadows that shouldn't exist. And if that happens, remember, it's temporary. It's your brain, caught between states, doing its best to make sense of contradictory information. Breathe. Wait. The paralysis will release. The hallucinations will fade, and you'll either return to waking or slip back into sleep, continuing the journey your brain has been making every night of your life. The borderland is strange, but it's not dangerous. It's just another country your consciousness passes through on its way to dreams. You've been working on a problem for hours, maybe days, turning it over in your mind, approaching it from every angle you can think of. And then you go to sleep. You dream about something seemingly unrelated, a conversation with a stranger, a journey through an impossible building, a childhood memory that hasn't surfaced in years. You wake up, and suddenly, inexplicably, you know the answer. The solution appears fully formed, obvious now, though it eluded you completely while you were awake. This isn't magic. This isn't coincidence. This is your dreaming brain doing what it evolved to do. Making connections, finding patterns, solving problems through a process that bypasses the linear, logical constraints of waking thought. Dreams are not just random noise. They're a creative engine, running all night working on puzzles you didn't even know you'd given it. The phenomenon of problem-solving during sleep has been documented for centuries. Auguste Kekulé, the chemist who discovered the ring structure of benzene, famously reported that the solution came to him in a dream of a snake biting its own tail, forming a circle. Dmitri Mendeleev claimed that the arrangement of the periodic table appeared to him in a dream, with the elements falling into their proper places. Elias Howe, inventor of the modern sewing machine, was stuck on the problem of where to put the hole in the needle until he dreamed of being captured by natives whose spears had holes near the tips. He woke and realized the solution. Put the eye of the needle near the point, not at the base. The dream didn't give him the answer directly. It gave him a metaphor, an image that his waking mind could translate into a practical solution. The reason dreams are so effective at problem solving has to do with the unique cognitive state of REM sleep. The prefrontal cortex, which normally keeps your thinking logical, sequential, and constrained by rules, is less active. Meanwhile, the associative networks of the brain, the regions that connect disparate pieces of information, that find similarities between seemingly unrelated concepts, are highly active. The brain is making connections it would never make while awake, following threads of association that waking logic would dismiss as irrelevant. A problem you've been approaching linearly, step by step, can suddenly be seen from a completely different angle. The dream doesn't solve the problem through analysis. It solves it through synthesis, through unexpected juxtaposition, through metaphor. There's a study that demonstrates this beautifully. Researchers gave participants a number sequence puzzle that had a hidden rule, a shortcut that, once discovered, made the puzzle trivially easy. Participants worked on the puzzle, then either slept or stayed awake for a period of time, then returned to the puzzle. Those who slept, particularly those who entered REM sleep, were nearly 3 times more likely to discover the hidden rule than those who stayed awake. Their brains during sleep had continued working on the problem, exploring different approaches, and had found the pattern. The sleep group didn't just rest, they actively improved at the task while unconscious. Dreams also excel at emotional problem solving, at working through interpersonal conflicts and psychological challenges that don't have clear logical solutions. You might dream about an argument with a friend, but in the dream, the friend has a different face, or the setting is somewhere from your childhood, or the conflict is expressed through metaphor. You're trying to build something together, but the pieces don't fit. The dream is taking the emotional core of the problem and exploring it from different angles, trying out different resolutions, processing the feelings without the defensiveness and rationalization that often interfere with waking reflection. You might wake up with a new perspective, a softening of anger, a clarity about what really matters in the relationship. The creative arts have always had an intimate relationship with dreams. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein came from a dream. Robert Louis Stevenson claimed that the plot of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was given to him by his dreams, which he called his brownies, little workers in his subconscious who would construct stories while he slept. Paul McCartney heard the melody for Yesterday in a dream and woke up convinced he must have unconsciously plagiarized it from somewhere because it seemed too complete, too perfect to have simply appeared. He spent weeks asking other musicians if they recognized it before accepting that his dreaming mind had composed it. The dream had access to all his musical knowledge, all the patterns and structures he'd internalized through years of practice, and it recombined them into something new. Visual artists report similar experiences. Salvador Dali deliberately cultivated his hypnagogic visions, using them as source material for his surrealist paintings. The melting clocks, the impossible architectures, the dreamlike juxtapositions, these weren't arbitrary. They were attempts to capture the logic of dreams, the way the dreaming mind makes connections that waking consciousness would reject. Dali understood that dreams have their own coherence, their own rules, and that those rules can reveal truths that rational thought cannot access. His paintings are translations, attempts to bring the dream world into waking visibility. The reason dreams are so creatively fertile is that they operate in the realm of metaphor and symbol. The dreaming brain doesn't think in words or logical propositions. It thinks in images, in feelings, in narratives that condense complex ideas into single scenes. A dream about being unable to find your way home might be processing feelings of alienation or loss of identity. A dream about flying might be exploring feelings of freedom, escape, or transcendence. The dream takes abstract concepts, things that are hard to think about directly, and gives them concrete form. And in doing so, it often reveals aspects of the problem that were invisible to logical analysis. There's evidence that the brain actively rehearses creative tasks during sleep. Musicians who practice a piece before sleeping show continued improvement in their performance the next day. And neuroimaging reveals that the motor cortex and auditory cortex are active during sleep, replaying the musical patterns. The brain is practicing, refining, optimizing the performance without conscious effort. Writers and poets sometimes report that their dreaming mind continues working on a piece, that they wake with new lines, new metaphors, new structural solutions. The creative work doesn't stop when you close your eyes. It continues in a different mode, with different rules, often with surprising results. The phenomenon of incubation in creative problem solving, where stepping away from a problem leads to breakthrough insights, is closely related to sleep and dreaming. When you stop consciously working on a problem, when you let it rest, your unconscious mind continues processing it. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, seems to be when this unconscious processing is most effective. The brain is freed from the constraints of the task at hand, free to wander, to make unexpected connections. This is why the advice to sleep on it is more than folk wisdom. It's a recognition that the sleeping brain has capabilities the waking brain lacks. Dreams can also serve as a kind of emotional rehearsal for creative work. Artists often dream about their work in progress, seeing it from different angles, experiencing it as an audience member rather than a creator. Writers dream about their characters, see them in situations that never appear in the actual story, learn things about them that inform the writing even if they're never explicitly stated. The dream becomes a space where the creative work can live and breathe independently, where it can reveal aspects of itself that the conscious creator hadn't planned or anticipated. There's a neurological basis for the connection between dreams and creativity. Both involve the default mode network, the brain regions active during mind-wandering, daydreaming, and self-referential thought. This network is crucial for imagination, for thinking about things that aren't present, for constructing narratives and exploring possibilities. During REM sleep, the default mode network is highly active, generating the rich, imaginative content of dreams. People with more active default mode networks tend to be more creative, more prone to daydreaming, and also more likely to remember their dreams. The same neural machinery that produces dreams also produces creative insights during waking hours. The hypnagogic state, that threshold between waking and sleeping, has been particularly valued by creative individuals, precisely because it combines the associative freedom of dreaming with just enough waking awareness to capture and direct the insights. In that state, you can observe the images and ideas arising from your unconscious without being fully swept into the narrative of a dream. You can ask questions, can guide the process slightly, can remember what emerges. It's a controlled access to the dream state, a way of harvesting its creative potential without losing yourself completely in sleep. Nightmares, too, can serve creative purposes. Horror writers and filmmakers often draw on their own nightmares, recognizing that the dreaming mind has an uncanny ability to generate images and scenarios that evoke primal fear. The nightmare taps into universal anxieties, into the threat detection systems that all humans share. A nightmare that terrifies you might terrify others for the same reasons. It's activating ancient fears, evolutionary vulnerabilities. By translating nightmares into art, creators can explore and process fear in a controlled way, can give form to anxieties that are otherwise shapeless and overwhelming. The relationship between sleep, dreams, and creativity suggests that rest is not the opposite of productivity. It's an essential component of it. The brain needs time offline, needs to enter states where different rules apply, where logic loosens and association runs free. The most creative individuals are often those who respect their sleep, who understand that the work continues even when they're not consciously working. The dream is not an interruption of creative work. It's a different mode of that work, one that's essential for breakthrough insights, for emotional processing, for the kind of synthesis that produces genuinely new ideas. And so tonight, as you prepare to sleep, know that your brain is preparing to work in ways your waking mind cannot. The problems you've been wrestling with, the creative challenges you're facing, the questions you haven't been able to answer. Your dreaming brain will take them up, will turn them over, will approach them from angles you haven't considered. You might not remember the dreams, you might wake with no conscious sense of having worked on anything, but the work will have happened nonetheless. Connections will have been made. Patterns will have been recognized. Emotions will have been processed. And you might find in the days that follow that solutions appear, that creative insights emerge, that things that seemed impossible suddenly feel within reach. The dream is a gift your brain gives itself, a nightly journey into possibility, into metaphor, into the deep associative networks where creativity lives. You don't have to do anything to receive this gift. You just have to sleep. You just have to trust that the ancient machinery of dreaming, refined over millions of years of evolution, knows what it's doing. Close your eyes. Let the day dissolve. Let the boundaries soften. And let your dreaming mind do what it does best. Create worlds, solve puzzles, make meaning from chaos, and prepare you in ways you'll never fully understand for whatever tomorrow brings. Sleep well, dream deeply, and wake to find that you've been working all night in the most mysterious and beautiful workshop your brain possesses, the infinite, impossible, endlessly creative theater of dreams.